So hey Lawn Care Nation, I've been using this Echo RB-60 broadcast spreader behind me for just over a year now. So a lot of you that follow my channel know that I put out a couple of videos on this unit. First was the initial first look and discussion about this particular broadcast spreader. The second was a video that I did after 1 year of use with the unit, a long-term review. And in that video I talked about a potential problem with the design of this particular RB-60 unit, where if you're using certain types of fertilizer, a lot of powdery type fertilizers, that because of the design of how that material discharge chute is designed, that material can get caught in between the two plates that I call it, and can sometimes make turning off the machine or closing that chute off not to function properly, where then you're left putting fertilizer on a lawn and you can't turn it off, and it keeps spilling fertilizer out, which you know, obviously is a potentially huge problem in burning client lawns. So on this particular unit, I talked about having to keep it clean after each use, but I also came up with a bit of a fix that I've kind of put together, a little modification, if you will, and after a week of using it here in the first week of 2021's lawn care season, putting down moss control, which is a heavy, very powdery type fertilizer that gets a lot of that those components really dirty and makes those components hard to operate properly. With this little modification that I made, I've been able to continue to use this spreader with no issues at all now. So I'll show you what I've done. So you can see when you're using materials like moss control that has iron sulfate powder in it, that has this very powdery consistency. If this gets wet, it starts to harden and solidify. Lime would be very similar, but with this type of material, and even some fertilizers, the prill size, with the design of this RB-60, I talked about in my other videos how, I'll just set this down, how this two sort of plate design that I call it, where there's this round disc at the top and this round disc at the bottom that control the discharge chute. And you can see the cable here attached to the handle up top. So when you're pulling on this cable, it's rotating this plate here to release, open up that discharge chute to release the material. And when you let go of that handle and release pressure off this cable, this spring on this side that you can see attached to this top plate are supposed to bring back the top plate and rotate it to close off that discharge chute. So what happens with this design that I found is, because it's two plates sitting on top of each other, that your material, whether it's really powdery like this or some fertilizer prills, will get jammed up and stuck in between these two plates. You can see how they kind of flex there. So you can get material that kind of builds up on there and can actually jam up this mechanism and won't allow it to close properly once you've opened it. So let's take a look back up top here. So if I open up or pull on the spring there, you can see that just how it doesn't flow properly, and you can see that there's actually that bottom plate visible underneath that top plate. And like I said, sometimes material can get jammed up in there and work its way in between the two plates. So what I did here was I installed this just piece of metal coat hanger wire to act as basically an emergency stop, and I'll show you how this works in a little bit. But how I discovered to do that was, if we look at the bottom side here, I noticed that the spring here, that is the return spring attached to this little spot here, had this hole here on that plate. It also had the spring come up and attach to a little hook that was kind of made right into the plastic, which was had a little hole there on the back of that as well. So kind of looking at the other side where the cable passes through that hole to another hole, I thought if I just drill a hole on the outside of this in line with that hole there, that I could pass something similar to like a coat hanger wire through there, through that hole. And you'll see that I actually put that coat hanger wire right inside the middle of the spring, and I just made a little hook and hooked it to the same spot that that spring is hooked to. Now on the top side, what I did was I just ran it along, and I wanted to be able to, let me flip this back over, is I wanted to be able to, from the operator control, if there was an issue with, you know, the chute not closing properly, that I could just reach from here and pull on that wire to close that chute. So what I discovered is that you needed to keep the wire fairly loose, and that will allow the spring to still do its job when it can, but when it needs that extra assistance, if there's, you know, just some debris sort of bound up, that you can pull on that to close it. So what I did to keep it up sort of in this sort of upright position where it's easy to just grab onto with your hand, was I just took the other end, and I noticed these little sort of tabs that were molded into the plastic just underneath the rim of the spreader. I just drilled a small little hole right across so that I could feed the coat hanger right through there, and just kind of bend it so that it would hook in there and just stay in that position without moving. So when the unit gets really dirty, or that discharge chute gets stuck, it makes it difficult to open up the chute to the proper width that you have it set at, as well as it makes closing the chute an issue as well, while relying on just the cable system. So you'll notice if I pull this, the chute opens only partially. It's not even opening to the full depth of what I have it set at, because the spring on the handle here just takes up that extra slack. It doesn't actually pull that chute wide open. And what I end up having to do is actually pulling it from the cable itself to get the chute to open to the depth that I have it set at. So you'll notice that that discharge chute is open, and it shouldn't be, because my hand is not on the handle. It should have returned to the closed position, and that's what happens when you're using the spreader and it's dirty. The fertilizer will continue to fall and you can't turn it off. So by having that coat hanger attached to that discharge chute, I can just reach down here, pull it, and manually close that discharge chute, and it makes it very easy to use. About 50% of the time it'll return on its own under the power of that spring, but it's just when, you know, getting towards the end of the day, you've used it all day long, and it starts to get all this dirty film and build up, and there might be fertilizer prills stuck in between those two plates, and it makes it difficult to both open and close. The opening isn't a big of an issue, because of course you can just use the cable to open it, but when you do, again, it won't return back to you know, the closed position without some assistance. And by having that coat hanger, again, I can just pull on that, and it acts as an emergency stop for that discharge chute. So there you have it, Lawn Care Nation. That is my coat hanger modification that I made to my Echo RB-60 fertilizer spreader to act as an emergency stop if it ever doesn't close off that material discharge chute on its own. I can always just pull that coat hanger and manually close it without any spillage. So if you like this video, make sure you hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, consider subscribing. Leave a comment down below and let me know if you've had any issues with your Echo RB-60 fertilizer spreader. So that's it for this one, guys. Here's to wishing you guys all overwhelming success and freedom in your lawn care business. Bye for now.